Part 2. I think everyone knows what a zealot is, but there was supposedly a subgroup of zealots very few people talk about. According to Wikipedia, under Sicarii, S-I-C-A-R-I-I. Quote, Sicarii was a splinter group of the Hebrew zealots in the decades preceding the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, who heavily opposed the Roman occupation of Judea and attempted to expel the Romans and any co-participant groups of Roman rule from the area. Stop. This is why I said supposedly. The Sadducees were for keeping Israel pure. The Pharisees were not. This seems to be backwards. But let's see what we can glean. Regardless of their affiliation, as you can see, those brothers weren't hearing that shit. Not from Rome, nor any co-participant groups with an S, which would include the Edomites and Herodians who wanted Rome to rule Judea outright. Don't you think? Let's continue, shall we? Quote, the Sicarii carried S-I-C-A-E, or small daggers concealed in their clothes. At public gatherings, they pulled out these daggers to attack Roman and Hebrew Roman sympathizers alike, blending into the crowd after the deed to escape detection. Let me read that again, because I kind of like that. The Sicarii carried S-I-C-A-E, or small daggers, concealed in their clothes. At public gatherings, they pulled out these daggers to attack Romans and Hebrew Roman sympathizers alike, blending into the crowd after the deed to escape detection. Example. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't all hunky-dory in Jerusalem at the time of the Anointed One's life. To be labeled a Roman sympathizer would invite death by the hands of a few good men. That brings me to the final section and why I send up a universal scribe signal. Everybody knows the story of the false prophecy Paul was involved in, right? You know, how the prophecy bestowed upon Paul happened exactly opposite than what was intended. You know, the story everybody uses to try and prove the Israelites were black. Right. The captain of the guard thought Paul was an Egyptian. Well, am I the only person who see a huge problem with this? No? Let me set up the scene for you. Acts 21, 33 through 38. The city, Jerusalem. Quote, Then the chief captain came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains, and demanded who he was and what he had done. And some cried one thing, some another among the multitude. Stop. Okay, they just left beating the crap out of Paul and the police came. As you can see, the crowd is still around and very hostile to Paul. In fact, it says, quote, and some cried one thing, some another among the multitude, which can only mean they were cursing him the hell out. It also means they were laying down accusations about him, questioning who he was and what he had done. How do I know? First, that is exactly what would happen if it happened in the hood today. They would have to pepper spray all of you guys. But most importantly, what it says next. Quote, and some cried one thing, some another among the multitude. And when he could not know the certainty for the tumult, he commanded him to be carried into the castle. Stop. I told you, whatever the crowd was screaming, the cop had to take the subject away because it had gotten too dangerous. And there was obviously conflicting things he perceived. Let's continue. Quote, and when he came upon the stairs, so it was that he was born of the soldiers for the violence of the people. I can see it now. A multitude of angry black faces yelling obscenities. You are a man of the earth! Earthborn you are, mother sucker! One brother would say. He is not even a real Jew. He must be gay, screams a sister. all with bad intentions on their minds, mind you. It was so bad, even when they started walking away, quote, for the multitude of the people followed after crying, away with him, away with him. Stop. So as you can see, they were probably saying some pretty damning things about Paul at the time. Uncertain of the matter, the guards marched on towards the castle. Quote, and as Paul was led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak to thee? Who said, canst thou speak Greek? Stop. So as you can see, the crowd followed them all the way to the castle, saying the most hideous things imaginable about Paul. Before I go on, let me give you this information. To be a captain of the guard in the Roman army would mean you probably had 20 years of your 25-year commitment under your belt. What I'm saying is, this cat is a grizzled veteran, and by the conquest of the Roman army, this guy has seen many battles in many countries. That can only mean this guy knows different dialects, clothing, customs, etc. Think about it for a minute. If you guys can tell that I'm colored just by my voice, y'all can't tell that I'm colored, right? Because I'm a colored man. Imagine what a grizzled veteran of the Roman army can pick up on face-to-face interaction. Here is the first part of my scribe signal. In a time where Greek was the predominant language being spoken not only in Jerusalem, but elsewhere the Greeks had control that Rome took over, they spoke Greek. Yes, Aramaic was being spoken, but for commerce and business, it was Greek, and less commonly, Latin being spoken. My first question is, why was the grizzled veteran surprised Paul could speak Greek? But wait! His next words should have shocked us more than anything. Why? Because here we have a captain of the Roman guard who has been to many countries and not only stared death in the face, he also stared many foreign enemies in the face he put to death also. A man whose job it is to be observant of all the surroundings at all times, looking at Paul dead in his damn face, standing in the heart of Jerusalem. Jerusalem, mind you, looking at Paul's clothes, listening to his dialect, checking out Paul's mannerisms, with an image backdrop of a multitude of true Hebrew Israelites screaming ugly things. All the while, surprised Paul could speak a common language for the territory. After taking in all of that information, check out what conclusion the grizzled veteran come to. Quote, art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days madeth an uproar, and leddeth out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city of Sicilia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak to the people. Example. So the captain of the guard thought Paul was an Egyptian, while standing in the heart of Jerusalem, standing next to Hebrew Israelites, huh? Now I am starting to piece together what the crowd was yelling at Paul. Can you guys help me with a logical? Wait, it doesn't even have to be logical. Just an explanation for this pivotal piece of history. I got 94 cents I will put on a dollar money order waiting on a good answer. But because the cash prize is so high, let me make it even harder for you with a different perception. The very fact Paul had to tell the man that he was a Jew says it all. Don't you think? Thank you for looking at this video, and look for the next. That's what he was.